Penguin Random House Audio presents The Bombshell, a novel by Darrow Farr. Read for you by Imani Jade Powers. A woman lays claim to as many native lands as she has had happy loves. Colette, Break of Day. Ajaccio, 1993. 1. Enlèvement. In the hours before her kidnapping, Séverine Guimard claimed Antoine Carcentil's virginity in a grotto overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. She'd felt his eyes on her since she transferred to the Lycée Laetitia Bonaparte the year before. She knew she wasn't beautiful in the dark-haired, olive-skinned way of the Corsicans around her. But Séverine was something to look at, with her sharp cheekbones and gold-washed hair and huge nose. It was a nose that belonged on the marble bust of a Roman senator, not a 17-year-old girl. Her mother always told her she'd look common without it, but Séverine had convinced Papa to pay for a nose job, as a combination graduation birthday gift so long as she passed the baccalaureate next week. It was perhaps this one flaw that endowed her with a keen awareness of her body, how it moved beneath clothes, how to angle her face in overhead lighting, how to make people watch her. Admittedly, she also possessed a certain magnetism based on her father's position as préfet of Corsica. She'd been to the Élysée for dinner, and President Schneider had kissed her hello. She'd vacationed in Greece with the head of the IMF and his family. She'd even played pétanque with a mid-succession line Grimaldi on the beach in Monaco one time. But she did not feel like Papa's position and influence eclipsed her infant star. In fact, she was confident that she'd eventually burn brighter than him. She would be an actress, a very famous one whose poster teen boys would tack to their ceilings, once she had her nose fixed. Séverine loved how Antoine Carcentil already gawked at her like she was somebody. She'd ask to borrow a pen and he'd hand it to her while thanking her for asking him. Last year he was all baby fat and a bad crew cut, but he'd since shot up and slimmed down, let his hair grow out and parted it down the middle like Leonardo DiCaprio on Quoi de Neuf, Docteur. He wasn't hot yet, but in another year or two he would be. It was the ideal moment for Séverine to initiate him, before he was corrupted by his new status, when he was still sweet and grateful for her attention. Seeking a break from all the frantic, last-minute test prep, she had invited Antoine for a beer at the Paillote by her house. He was incapable of playing it cool, twisting his cocktail napkin into shreds and asking her dull questions. "Do you like it better here or in Paris?" "Paris, obviously. I mean, the beach is nice, but otherwise it's so boring. Anyway, I'm going back. Well, as long as I pass the bac, I'm starting at Paris 3 this fall. God, I hope drama school is less of a drag than lycée." She took an anxious drink, thinking about the impending exam, which determined whether they'd be going to university or held back for another year of terminale. Although she'd argued in favor of skipping university and going straight to LA, a hard no from her parents. The thought of failing the bac, of her parents' disappointment and embarrassment, of confirming she was a total bimbo airhead, made her want to bury herself alive in the sand. "My parents think I should get a good education first," Séverine continued with a sigh. "It's annoying, but I guess Hollywood is impressed by Shakespeare in the Park types." She didn't expect Antoine to know what Shakespeare in the Park was, and that was the point of name-dropping it. Séverine was worldly, with a French politician father and American poet mother. "What about you? Where are you headed?" she asked. "I guess l'Université de Corse." "Are you going to become radicalized there?" she teased. "Join I Fratelli?" Write nasty things about my father in the student paper and start thinking of me as a dirty, colonizing Pinzutu. Antoine let out a soft laugh. All that pro-independent stuff is pretty lame. Besides, I'm not that into politics. All Corsicans are into politics, she said. You can be honest. What do you think of my dad? Hesitating, he said. My parents say it's good he's pushing for autonomy, but it's probably a way to pretend he's fighting for us without changing much. He winced, afraid he'd blown it by telling the truth. I get it, Séverine said diplomatically, although Antoine's parents were clearly idiots. But it's only been a year. He's got a lot of ideas. He really wanted the job. Believe me, my mom and I did everything possible to make him turn it down. For a moment, she felt silly articulating this resentment while chewing on a mint leaf fished from her mojito, feet sunk into fine sand that led to the tourmaline blue sea. Corsica was dead half the year, but now, at the beginning of summer, the island came alive. Droves of people traveled from the continent on vacation, the sun emitted powerful golden light well into the evening, and nights were warm as bath water, made for drinking cold wine. It finally blossomed into the Ile de Beauté the postcards promised, where something exciting might happen for once. I guess I'll miss some things about this place, she added with affected wistfulness, gazing towards the water. Then she turned, locking eyes with him. I'll miss you, for one. They got a little drunk and walked along the beach as the sun extinguished itself in the ocean. When they reached a tiny cove between the cliffs, Séverine leaned against the rock and pushed her hair out of her face. Come here, she said. What? Antoine asked, like a dunce. Séverine placed his hand on her face and took his thumb in her mouth, biting gently. As she closed the distance between them, he leaned away, but once she touched her lips to his, he returned her kiss frantically. She did her best to control the inept speed and pressure of his tongue. It wasn't that pleasant, but this was the deal. She had to be patient as she trained him to do exactly what she liked. After a few minutes, he pulled back, flushed and shuddery, and said, You're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Séverine knew this was objectively untrue, but understood the gist. He felt both blessed and bewildered, unsure how to express or even identify this chaos of emotion. Séverine found it cute. She had chosen him for this gentle, simple nature. She wanted a guy who'd be properly appreciative. His dumb disbelief that she was in his arms, the trembly panic, that's what turned her on. She'd been with boys who were good-looking and knew it. Or worse, mediocre boys with an overabundance of confidence, and she'd learned her lesson. These entitled types abounded in Paris, while the Corsican guys in school harassed her out of some insecurity that she thought she was better than them, which was absolutely correct. She knew she was better than them. Now she only kissed boys like Antoine, quiet, decent, and boring, but on the cusp of a change. She'd guided him onto his back in the sand. Is this your first time? She asked, hovering over him. Disoriented, open-mouthed, he nodded. So far, she'd taken the virginities of 4 boys. Antoine made 5. She liked the idea of being never forgotten, a landmark. She liked the feverish tremors they emitted when she ignored them in the hallway afterwards. Funny enough, her virgins never told people at school what transpired. They had their own private experience of Séverine, what they considered the real her, she guessed, and protected it with a touching, misguided loyalty. In reality, they weren't closer to knowing her than anyone else. She pulled her red dress over her head and untied her bikini bottom, watching Antoine watch her with suspicious anticipation, like she might be pranking him. Once he was inside her, though, his demeanor turned solemn, verging on spiritual. Sex itself wasn't yet so satisfying for Séverine. She'd read in her mother's
Sample complete. Ready to continue?